Hello, this is Adam Bernard with AutoPerspectives, and it is time once again for News Roundup. As you can see by the logo on the front page here, this will be a slightly longer than usual episode as we cover some of the vehicles that were unveiled at last week's Los Angeles Auto Show. And with that, let's get right into it. Jeep's Recon finally made its production appearance over 3 years after it was first shown to the public. At a Jeep's credit, it does not appear to have changed too much from what we originally saw. Sales are targeted to start early next year, launching with the Moab variant, which is the flagship at about $65,000. There will be more affordable models to follow. This is a similar strategy to what Jeep did with the Wagoneer S. It'll start sales in North America, but it will be offered around the world as well. Underpinning the Recon is the Stella Large architecture. This is shared with both the new Dodge Charger and the Jeep Wagoneer S. It is a 400-volt architecture, which unfortunately means it does not charge quite as fast as some of its competitors at this price point. On the outside, this clearly looks like a Jeep. Between the grille design, which you can see is lights, not slots, the squared-off wheel arches and the boxy profile, you are not going to mistake this for anything else. The Recon is driven by a 650 horsepower dual motor layout with a 100 kilowatt hour battery. So it seems like it's the same battery that goes into the Wagoneer S and the Charger as well. Targeted range is rather disappointing, 230 miles. Again, not surprising. This is definitely not the most mass efficient platform out there. And as you can see, aerodynamics were not a priority, taking a backseat to making sure that this looked like a Jeep. There will be a later variant that is supposed to get about 250 miles. The flip side is the performance, 0 to 60 in a rather blistering 3.6 seconds. Would I have traded off a slightly slower 0 to 60 for some better range? Personally, I might have, but we'll see what buyers think once it actually hits dealer floors. As you can see, one of the things that makes this as a Jeep is the near open air capability. In this case, the doors, tailgate glass, and quarter windows can all be removed without tools. So the hinges here are a little different than you might see on a Wrangler. You also get your choice of a standard dual pane sunroof or an optional power sliding canvas roof. There's plenty of hardware to support off-road capability, including a standard electronic locking differential, front axle disconnect, which also helps you range just a bit, large diameter half shafts, 33-inch all-terrain tires, and 9.1-inch ground clearance. It features auto, sport, snow, sand, and a Moab exclusive rock drive mode. So again, this is designed to be far more off-road capable than the Wagoneer S. The interior features a symmetrical IP with a nice beefy passenger side grab handle, and there's a modular accessory rail along the top of the dash to add cup holders, GoPro mounts, whatever it is you might think to add, and I'm sure the Recon will launch with a wide array of accessories. The materials include scuff-resistant surfaces, because this is a rough and ready vehicle, as well as a new Capri synthetic leather trim. It also uses recycled materials for the headliner and for the carpets. The speakers were moved from the doors to beneath the seats, so even if you take the doors off, you still got your sound with you. And at the center of it all is Jeep's biggest touchscreen at 14.5 inches, with physical controls for audio, but apparently not for climate control, unfortunately. The new Jeep brand exclusive Trails Off-Road app offers a comprehensive guide to trails across the US and Canada, now with pitch and roll mapping. So again, they've tried to put enough technology in here to allow you to take this just about anywhere. And the dynamic range mapping is powered by TomTom, which helps plan long trips. So overall, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. Again, the range is quite disappointing, and the price does turn out to be kind of high. Although if you priced a Jeep Wrangler Unlimited, the four-door lately, that is also not an entry-level vehicle. But we've seen how the Dodge Charger Daytona has struggled in the market. We'll see if this does any better. Obviously, it'll go up against vehicles like the Rivian R1S, which starts a little more, the Rivian R2, which starts less, and newer luxury entries like the BMW iX3, which will start at about $60,000 when it shows up here shortly. Next, we have yet another off-roader that also debuted at Los Angeles, and this is the Hyundai Crater. Yeah, I know, it seems a little odd to name a vehicle after a giant hole in the ground, but it does kind of give you that off-road sense. This is a California-designed EV concept designed to expand the possibilities of the XRT brand. It was reportedly built off the Ioniq platform, not necessarily because the production version would be an EV, but it turned out to be convenient because they did want a vehicle you could actually drive around. But we don't really have any technical details, and they didn't even talk about batteries or range or performance or anything like that. It is a compact SUV, so around the size of the Hyundai Tucson, created around the question, what does freedom look like? And it features Hyundai's new Art of Steel design language, which we've seen in more of their newer vehicles, like the Hyundai Nexo fuel cell SUV. A lot of rugged design details. That cladding that you see around the wheel arches is similar to what's offered on the Ioniq 5 XRT. It has chiseled surfaces. The wheels were inspired by a hexagonal asteroid impacting a sheet metal landscape. And yeah, I can kind of see that. And like the Recon, it has 33-inch all-terrain tires. Underneath is a full underbody skid plate with a roof platform to mount auxiliary lighting, additional storage, and other accessories. It features three-dimensional parametric pixel lighting. Remember that the parametric pixel lighting is kind of a cue for the EVs, which suggests that a production version of this, which they have strongly hinted at, could be a fully electric vehicle. The side door mirrors that you see are little cameras, but they're also removable flashlights. You can actually see the lights turned on there. So that's kind of a neat little trick. The interior, I would say, is rather a bit more avant-garde than the exterior, and it's actually one of the coolest interiors that I've seen on a vehicle for a while. Definitely, obviously, on a concept here. There is no touchscreen, but there is a bring your own device capability and a full-width heads-up display that includes a rear-view camera mirror feed. So if you look at the very top of the image here, you can see a variety of graphics along the base of the windshield. So not unlike the panoramic iDrive in the new BMWs. That tubular perforated dashboard structure features backlighting and an integrated cylinder-type controls. You can see those in the center of the dash. It features a removable Bluetooth speaker in the center console, a brushed metal interior accents with topographic patterns etched into select surfaces, and a multi-function off-road controller, which is designed for full and intuitive control. There's also front and rear locking differentials and traction and braking management. So like the Recon, there seems to be a lot of thought put into the design and the technology of the vehicle to enable the off-road capability. We'll switch gears rather dramatically with the new Porsche Cayenne Electric, which we've been teased with for the past several months. Porsche has shown some prototypes. They've let some of the media get a hold of it, but now you get the full reveal. It should be noted this vehicle was not at the Los Angeles Auto Show. There was a dealer exhibit there, but no formal corporate presence. It's worth remembering that the original Cayenne launched over 20 years ago, and it changed how people perceived the brand. A lot of people thought it was an awful idea at the time, and it was a little awkward looking from a proportional standpoint, but it did turn out to be a big moneymaker for the brand. The new electric variant joins the ICE Cayenne, which is now likely to get a next generation and continuing to the next decade, and that's the result of a pivot from Porsche, which basically deleted the notion of trying to be 80% electric by the end of this decade. It's a little bigger than the ICE model and a 5.1-inch longer wheelbase, so you do get a fairly spacious interior, and the claimed drag coefficient is 0.25, which is decent. It's not world-class at this point, but pretty good for a vehicle of this size. It's derived from VW Group's 800-volt PPE architecture that underpins the Macan and the Audi Q6 e-tron. The battery is a pretty substantial 113 kilowatt hours, and it charges at up to 400 kilowatts. So it actually raised the charge rate compared to the other PPE entries. And that means a 10 to 80% charge in less than 16 minutes. And that compares to 22 minutes for the smaller Macan. It's worth noting that among the upgrades to the platform here is the fact that the batteries are not in a pack. So you don't have a pack of batteries under the vehicle. The modules are actually bolted into the floor, and then a reinforced cover is bolted over them. And that's supposed to allow easy servicing if there are any issues with the battery itself. This is Porsche's first model with an NACS port, and it's also offering an available wireless charger for home use that runs about 11 kilowatts, and that is an $8,000 option with all the hardware. So we've seen a couple of other automakers experiment with wireless charging, but Porsche is now bringing it mainstream, as it were. The new Cayenne Electric will launch in two variants, the standard 402 horsepower, which you saw in the previous photo. This is the 844 horsepower turbo. If you do get into launch mode, you will get up to 1,139 horsepower, which is pretty darn amazing. And that'll take you from 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds, which is Bugatti territory. The turbo also gets a unique rear motor compared to the base model with direct oil cooling instead of a water jacket. It can recuperate up to 600 kilowatts of power, which means that the electric motors handle about 97% of the braking needs for the vehicle. Like the Taycan, it has a 2-speed transmission, and at the back you can see on either side of the rear fascia, those are little arrow blades that extend out at 36 miles an hour to improve stability and add about 6 miles of range overall. New Cayenne will tow up to 7,700 pounds, so it's definitely suitable for a vacation trip. And it has standard adaptive air suspension and Porsche active suspension management with optional rear wheel steering for better maneuverability. The biggest challenge, I mentioned those horsepower numbers. The turbo weighs a whopping 5,850 pounds. It's about 1,000 pounds plus or minus more than the recently updated Tesla Model X. So there's a lot of heft to carry around, so it does need quite a bit of power. The range, WLTP ratings are 400 and 379 miles for the base and for the turbo. That likely translates to EPA numbers of about 320 and 300 miles, which are okay, but we've seen other automakers get closer to 400 miles. So clearly the mass has a big impact here, as did the focus on performance. We've actually already seen the interior, so there's nothing really new from what was unveiled about a month or so ago. It is very, as you can see, screen heavy. It has a 14.25-inch IP cluster, a 12.3-inch central curved flow display, and you can see that's actually a bent or curved screen, which can be 1 or 2 images on it. And then there's an optional 14.9-inch passenger screen, and there's both physical and for audio and HVAC controls. There's also a new augmented reality head-up display, which is the equivalent of an 87-inch TV screen. And over top of all of this is a 9-segment dimmable programmable sunroof, heated armrests, and door panels. So overall, there's a lot of tech in here, and it is not coming cheap. It's about $111,000 for the base Cayenne Electric and $165,000 for the turbo. And remember, Porsche does like to offer you a lot of choices, and in some cases, maybe nickel and dime you a bit. So I'm sure it's not too hard to outfit a Cayenne Electric to over $200,000. We've seen Porsche struggle in the market lately for a variety of reasons. Obviously, the decision to hang on to the internal combustion is probably good, at least in the short term, because the transition to electric in the market is happening more slowly than everyone expects. But obviously, it also costs money to keep all those vehicles running and serviced, etc. There's a lot going here that's strong for the Cayenne Electric, but it may face some struggles, especially from a price standpoint. Deliveries don't start until the end of next summer, so it'll be a while before you see these on the road, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more from Porsche between now and then. Genesis, which unveiled the GV60 at the LA Auto Show, actually had the live reveal in France, and when they unveiled that vehicle, they also unveiled a bit of a surprise. The Magma GT concept is their answer to Porsche or Corvette or Ferrari. And Magma is the new performance sub-brand for the Genesis brand. So just like Cadillac has V-Series and Mercedes has AMG. And Genesis says, you know what, if we're going to get into performance vehicles, we actually really do need to do a high-performance flagship. And they seem to be pretty serious about bringing this model into production. It is a halo model that guides Genesis's long-term performance strategy, including future GT racing ambitions. So yes, they do plan to get on the racetrack with this vehicle. It does feature the Genesis signature lighting front and rear with butterfly-style doors, and as you'll note in the bottom right, no rear window. Again, it appears to be intended for production, reportedly powered by a version of the recently revealed 3.2-liter turbo V8 developed for the GMR 001 race car. Likely connected to an 8-speed dual-clutch transmission and also likely hybridized to get into the power numbers that buyers in this class expect. And it's also likely to hit the track as a GT3 racer. Genesis chief designer says the platform could run for about 14 years with a variety of derivatives like Roadster and a significant mid-cycle update. So we will await further news. It would probably take them about 3 years to bring this vehicle to market. So probably 2028, 2029 timeframe, assuming that they go ahead with it. Meanwhile, over in Australia, Nissan unveiled a new Navara. If you live in the US, you're probably not familiar with the Navara, but if you live somewhere else, you probably have heard of it. This is the name that's used on Nissan's midsize truck in a number of global markets, and it's been doing that for about 40 years now, selling 500,000 units globally. The latest model was unveiled prior to sales beginning next year. It launches with a 2.4-liter turbo diesel and a 3-port grille that echoes the first generation D21 Mazda pickup. Now, if you live overseas, this vehicle may look familiar, and that's because it is. Just as the new Nissan Rogue plug-in hybrid for the US is a rebadged Mitsubishi Outlander, the new Nissan Navara is now a rebadged Mitsubishi Triton, which you can see there in the lower right. The new Triton was unveiled a couple of years ago, and Mitsubishi is now part of the Renault-Nissan Alliance, so there's been a lot more cross-pollination, and Nissan apparently decided rather than develop their own new truck, let's rely on somebody who's got a lot of experience in midsize trucks, and that is Mitsubishi. So hence we have the new Navara spun off the Triton. It shares the Triton's new electric power steering and a suite of ADAS technology, as well as a smart four-wheel drive system that switches modes based on driving conditions. So if you're driving on the freeway, it will automatically switch down to two-wheel drive. Unfortunately, there's not a lot to really brag about here. It's not a bad truck, but it's not bringing any technologies first to the market. It's not bringing any significant innovations. It just happens to be a competent truck from an established brand. Is that enough to go up against Ford and Toyota and even some of the new Chinese players? We will have to wait and see. And finally, over to India with the Tata Sierra. Tata, you will recall, is the owner of JLR, but they are also an automaker in their own right. The original Sierra was a 3-door body-on-frame SUV, the first from that brand, and it was based on the Telco line pickup. It ran from 1991 to 2003. The new model is BFI. It was actually unveiled as a concept 5 years ago and a more production-ready vehicle in 2023. Tata says it is, quote, a reinterpretation of its soul, a bridge between heritage and the future, and positioned as a halo product. It's a nice-looking vehicle, very clean, contemporary design, some gloss black trim around the wheel arches up front. The blacked-out C-pillar actually calls back to the original 3-door layout. So this is a 5-door, but the window graphics make it look like it is a 3-door SUV. Up front is a light bar, which is very trendy. They actually refer to it here as a lightsaber. The new Sierra features flush door handles, 19-inch wheels. It has a full-width taillight bar as well and a wraparound liftgate, not unlike some of Audi's SUVs. Under the hood is a new 1.5-liter gas engine in naturally aspirated or turbocharged configurations. There's also a 1.5-liter diesel, and yes, we will see a new EV as well. So Tata has been slowly expanding their EV portfolio. The interior is pretty darn sophisticated. Yes, it has a 3-screen layout. So 1 instrument cluster and then 2 additional touchscreens for infotainment and navigation, etc. There are touch-sensitive steering wheel controls, unfortunately instead of mechanical switches, and there is an electronic gear selector. The interior is not black on black on black, but it is beige and gray, so it does feel a little lighter inside. There's a panoramic glass roof, a centrally mounted soundbar, which you can see here mounted right below the center vents. It offers level 2 driver assist technology, dual zone climate control, and an electronic parking brake. So definitely a big step forward for Tata. This is expected to be a big volume player for them. Prices will be announced a little later this month, but it should do quite well in its home market. And that about brings us to the end of this supersized Auto Perspectives episode. If you like what you've seen here, please subscribe and share, and visit AutoPerspectives.net to check out the blog. And for those in the US, have a happy Thanksgiving this week, and I will see you all back here in about 7 days. So long.